Hey everybody, and welcome to some stat check bonus content. I am going to be talking today about the Red Terror. I'm Innes, and today we got the new rules for the Red Terror, who is a super cool new monster data sheet for Tyranids that I'm really excited to have a chat with you all about. To the degree that I bumped recording the meta preview for May back to tomorrow, so that I could sit down with you guys today and talk about the Red Terror. That's how much I think this data sheet's cool. Um, think he's a little bit transformational in the sense that he'll make Tyranids much more interesting. He has some really good scoring abilities. He has very solid damage output for his points. He's not like a world beater. He's not going to be ripping vehicles in half, but he's super cool. And I think he's going to go in a lot of Tyranid lists. I think he'll be very powerful for the army. Let's start with the easy bit and talk about the overview of the datasheet. So what are we looking at for the Red Terror? Let me see if that's a bit more zoomed in for you guys. Whatever. I would recommend pulling up the datasheet on the website as well and following along. But very broadly, he is a movement 10 monster. He's got toughness 8 with 9 wounds. He's a 3-up save, no invulnerable save, leadership 8, OC3. OC3 is pretty solid. It means that if he leaves like one model alive, he'll still be contesting an objective. But hopefully we won't be leaving models alive, as we'll kind of get to. He has 12 attacks in combat at 722 with weapon skill 2. No keywords on that, but 12 attacks at 722 is a pretty respectable profile. On average, he's going to be hitting about 10 times. He's going to be wounding Space Marines. He's going to hand them 6 or 7 saves, which, if they're not armor attempting, should mostly kill a squad, but doesn't have to. If they are armor attempting, it's definitely not. Then obviously we're going to stack some buffs on top of that by playing various detachments and giving him some abilities on top of that. But respectable. I think Sam ran the math that it comes out to about 50% to kill a squad of AOC Space Marines before you apply any buffs, which is a completely reasonable place to be. Then he has an extra attack, which is one attack at strength 5, D3 plus 2 damage. It's extra attacks, devastating wounds, and precision. And then basically, anytime that this model successfully wounds unmodified into a infantry, mounted, or beast unit, it does an automatic it does an automatic critical wound, which means it will be automatically devastating, and he heals D3 plus 2 wounds if he kills something with that. So use cases for this is mostly precisioning out small characters and just killing a model. Um, if you're going into like a 4 wound character like a chaplain or a guard castellan or something like that, precisioning that guy out on a 2 to hit, 3 to wound into 3 up on the damage, it's not the most reliable thing in the world. A 2 to hit into 3 to wound to 3 to wound is somewhere around the region of like a 40% chance to work. I want to say it's like 37, just off the top of my head. But it's respectable for a decent threat, and any 3 wound characters are very under duress. But also, it's just an extra dead Terminator. It's an extra dead Custody Guard if you successfully wound. Now, the biggest breaker on that one is going to be actually getting the successful wound. It's only strength 5 and it's not anti anything. So into like a Gravis Marine or a Custody Guard, you are going to be wounding on 5s unless you're in Synapse range. Synapse range will push that to 4s. Beasts, it's going to be even worse. But if you do hit that wound into, like a Technomancer and you get the big damage and he doesn't cast the Feel No Pains, you'll feel like a king. His other 2 rules, he has a go back and reserve rule at the end of either player's fight phase. Now, this is obviously the big selling point of the data sheet. I think it's the most powerful rule on here, is the ability to go back and reserve at the end of either player's fight phase as long as it's out of engagement range. Now, for you as the active player, you'll be able to do this to go back and reserve at the end of your turn 1, come down on your opponent's. You can then potentially rapid ingress on your opponent's turn 1. So if you go first, you'll be able to pick him up at the end of your turn 1, and then rapid ingress him on your opponent's turn 1, and then have it active for turn 2, or have it active to heroic, rapid ingress onto a primary, force your opponent to come and play the game. Really powerful interaction there. And then if you go second, obviously it's just naturally you pick up your opponent's turn 1. You can then drop down in Subterranean Assault. It's another unit that can like charge 6 inches on turn 1. It gives you a tunnel every turn, right? There's lots of things you can do with this ability. But the big things are it just by natural it gives you just incredible scoring advantage. You can pick up every turn, drop down. You can drop in, score sabotage at the end of your opponent's turn, pick up again, go and do it again. You can get all your stabber plugs and stuff like that. It's going to combine really well with the Biovore in terms of giving you just a really good array of scoring options in Tyranids. Like this guy plus a Biovore is 108 points, and it'll basically solve most of your card problems. There's very little you will not be able to do consistently with these guys, even if you never really engage them in combat. But if you do want to engage him in combat, he's a really solid rapid ingress threat. Rapid ingressing for primary is a really powerful tool. We've seen that be really effective with the Lion. Being able to pick him up in the command phase and then threaten to drop it down, it gives armies like Sub Assault or Invasion Fleet that maybe don't necessarily want to go second or do really want to go second for sort of end game scoring. It gives them a way to leverage going first because you have that turn 1 rapid ingress primary threat, or just finding a bunch of damage to your opponent. He does also have the go through walls rule. So he has the kind of standard rule that we saw in the Defiler. This one does not allow you to go through models. It specifically is only through terrain. And with movement 10, once we find out exactly what base size he's on, we shall see. He looks to be sort of in between a Carnifex and a Trigon in size, so I would expect the base to be somewhere in the region of like a 70 to a 90 millimeter base, but potentially it's an oval, that kind of thing. We don't really know yet. But being able to go through walls, really powerful tool. It works well with the rapid ingress, because you can rapid ingress and um, like rapid ingressing and going through a wall, going from safety. Notably as well, this does not seem normal, advance, or fallback, so it is any move, which does mean that theoretically you can charge through walls as well, which is the thing that the Defiler and similar data sheets can't do. The Red Terror does have a bit more flexibility there, where you can roll a charge to go through walls, and I think that's why it can't go through models, is because that would be kind of crazy if you could go through models as well. Yeah, and then keyword-wise, we're looking at character, epic hero, great devourer, all the standard ones, monster, and then you have borrower, Vanguard, and Vanguard Invader keywords. Borrower and Vanguard Invader keywords, we're going to turn on a bunch of the Tyranid's detachment rules. Vanguard Invader means you're eligible to be used in Final Day, and you'll get the detachment buff from Vanguard Onslaught, which will give you advance and charge as well as fallback and charge. And then borrower means that you'll be able to set up a tunnel naturally whenever you come up in Subterranean Assault. So, what are the natural strengths of this stage? 130 points as well, to confirm. We did get that in the GW article. They were like, this guy is 130 points, which I think is a really, really reasonable price point. He doesn't hit super hard, but he does hit well enough to be worth including. We've got a ton of mobility in the stage, right? Like the ability to go through walls, the ability being movement 10, being able to go back into reserve naturally at the end of both players' turns. If anyone remembers Tyranids in 9th edition, this is effectively Encircle the Prey, which was an incredibly, incredibly powerful stratagem. And I think this rule alone makes the data sheet really, really, really sing. This is going to be equivalent in a lot of time situations to stuff like Warp Talons, which are obviously a very, very powerful data sheet that have been nerfed a bunch of times in Chaos Space Marines and still make the cut in a lot of lists now today. Notably, to go back in reserve, he has to be out of engagement range, but he doesn't have to kill something, which, unlike Warp Talons, which do have to kill something, it means that you can have this guy go in supported by something else, and as long as the two of them combined kill the thing, you are completely fine to leave the table, which helps a ton with not getting bogged down in the same situations where like a Warp Talon, maybe your opponent commander was the last save and lives, and then you kill it with something else, but you had to be careful to not kill it with the first thing, because then the Warp Talons couldn't leave, and if they CP reroll the last save and you don't get out with the Warp Talons, you'll feel really stupid. Whereas with the Red Terror, you can charge in alongside like a Haruspex, a Trigon, 10 Gene Stealers, anything really. And if you kill the target or finish it off or whatever. Maybe you start with the Red Terror, you put as much damage as you can, and you see what's left, and then you make a decision about how the rest of your squad will allocate based on what's left. And then you can give yourself some high roll protection in the sense that you can go into the other thing if the Red Terror kills it, and if you don't kill it, you can protect the Red Terror by killing the thing anyway. Which is just a really, really, really great set of tools. Obviously, the ability to go back into reserve in both players' turns and the rapid ingress tools that come with that is the big selling point to me. Rapid ingressing for primary is the thing that I'm the most excited to do with this guy, especially if you picked him up on turn one. Not many armies can do that kind of turn one play. Now, we did see in some of the 11th edition previews that rapid ingress won't work on turn one anymore, which probably for the best, but for the time being, we've got another at least couple weeks of this edition. We don't know how long it's going to be left, but maybe between 4 and 8 weeks, depending on when in June the edition drops. But this guy will work. He'll love getting tank shock from being a monster in next edition as well. So that could be interesting as well. He does respectable damage. 13 attacks, most of which are damage 2. AP2 is not the best profile. 722 is it's a little underwhelming, right? Like I don't want to sit here and say that it's not a good profile. He's going to on average hand a Space Marine unit about 7 saves before you add any detachment buffs on top of that, right? And there are lots of detachment buffs in Tyranids that give additional damage, but it's not world ending. He's not particularly a threat to vehicles, not a threat to even like bigger infantry squads. Anything with armor contempt is going to be a real challenge. Anything with minus 1 damage is going to be non-negotiable. But in those kinds of matchups, he's going to turn into a scoring machine, and that's totally fine. He will be a target of opportunity. He'll go and hunt down a scout squad. He'll kill, the last 2 guys out of a squad that's a pain in the ass, whatever you need him to do. But if all this guy does is teleport around and do scoring and support the rest of your units, you'll never feel that upset about it, which I think is a great space for the Red Terror to be at the price value that he is. Right, like when he's not good for his damage, it's not like he loses his utility. He still remains an incredible scoring piece in any other army. He's quite resilient to chip damage. Anytime that he kills an infantry unit, he kills an infantry model with his tail, he'll heal D3+2. Into any squad of generic infantry, you're going to be hitting on a 2, wounding on a 3. That's completely fine. If you are playing like something like Invasion Fleet and you spike and you get the sustained hit, which you could have with crit fives with the invasion fleet stratagem, and you get 2 hits and you get 2 wounds and you heal 2d3 plus 4, you're going to feel incredible. He's only got 9 wounds. You could potentially heal from 1 all the way back to full with that, which would be very, very funny. Yeah, really, really solid resilience to chip damage if you take like an explosion or you get hit by like a grenade, something like that on the way in. Maybe you get overwatched and take a couple of wounds. You're very likely to be able to keep that up. Now, the nice thing about that specifically with Tyranids, this guy's very likely to not be dropping down in synapse range, which is the way that you'll maintain your leadership. Tyranids obviously need to be within 6 of a synapse creature to get the leadership roll on 3d6. Red Terror only being leadership 8 does mean that uh, when you drop this guy in, if he is below half, it is very, very likely that he battle shocks. It's 56% chance that he will battle shock. And by being able to continually keep himself healed up, it's much less likely that you suffer from that battle shock mechanic. Because otherwise you're going to be feel a lot more pressure into like dropping into synapse range, which is not a thing that's easy to maintain as the late game goes, especially in the way a lot of turret lists are built nowadays. You don't tend to have a lot of late game synapse tools. You're very clustered on your synapse, right? It's a lot of things that play the game early. Maybe you'll be able to chuck a Neuraloid onto this guy from a Neurotyrant if you rapid ingress him, but that's not always a guarantee. So that resilience to chip damage will help a ton. Obviously, great keywords and cheap at 130 points. We're not going to complain about a data sheet that doesn't kill, 5 Death Knights in combat when it normally costs 130 points. Would it be cool if this guy was 300 points in a world beater? Yeah, it would be, but that's not the data sheet we have, and we have to assess him as the thing that we've actually been given. And I think the thing we've been given is an incredible scoring piece that has good ability to play the game and do good chip damage into anything that stands in front of you. Now, what are our weaknesses? Respectable damage is not good damage, right? And I think that that's a really important thing to say here. This guy is eating around the edges. He is a harassment unit. He's picking his battles. He's choosing what to fight. You are going to feel very, very awkward if he gets stuck in combat with something and can't leave. Now, there's not a guarantee that he dies because he's reasonably durable, right? Toughness 8 with 9 wounds and a 3-up save doesn't fall over to a stiff breeze. If he's brawling on a flank or fighting away from where the game is happening, it's pretty likely that he doesn't just like fall over and die to a stiff breeze. If he gets stuck on the last ranger of a Eldar squad or something like that, he'll still probably be there unless your opponent really wants to commit to doing with it. Which might be a thing that you can punish, but he doesn't actually do insane damage. And that's, again, the price point, not a thing we should expect, but you are going to find this guy occasionally get stalled on something if you're not willing to sink a CP into it. I think a lot of the time, the way that you'll resolve his attacks is you'll do the 12 attacks first, and then you'll wait and you'll be like, would you like to armor attempt? And then you're kind of like, the math is that it's about 50-50 plus the bite. And if the bite goes through and kills an extra guy, and I'm going to roll the bite last. So, are you going to CP roll the last save when the bite could still kill you? And you're going to try to make your opponent's life difficult that way. A little bit of the old razzle dazzle on the gameplay side of things to try to keep the ability high. You can look at things like vectors with the Swarmlord. Swarmlord is reasonably common in stuff like Subterranean Assault and Invasion Fleet. So maybe you're going to have him going that way to try to propel him into more of a mid game position where your opponent doesn't want to use armor attempt, things like that, so you can keep the scoring and the harassment going. But that's fine. That's a thing you can definitely do. He is a little CP intensive to get the most out of. If you want to be rapiding this guy every turn, it's very CP hungry. Tyranids are not an army that traditionally has a glut of CP. They are, if you're playing a Hive Tyrant or you're playing the Swarm Lord, you'll be getting your 1 or 2 additional CP from those guys. But those are often going on very, very powerful stratagems, right? A lot of the Tyranid detachments have great stratagems. Subterranean Assault has to go back and reserve stratagem, the reroll charge aura stratagem, the sustained hit stratagem that it wants to be using pretty consistently, as well as command rerolling things like Tyrannifex guns, command rerolling big important saves. Invasion Fleet has the Feel No Pain stratagem, it has the Resurrect stratagem, it has the Crit 5 stratagem, which is 2 CP. Lots of things you want to be spending CP on, and rapid ingressing more than once or twice is a thing that can be challenging. Notably, you can rapid ingress this guy alongside hyper-adapted Raveners, which is a super cool little interaction, and it's one of the good ways to keep the Synapse support available on him, which is another thing this guy can struggle with, is that Strength 7 really wants to be Strength 8. Strength 8 is such an amazing breakpoint for killing light infantry, which is what this guy's primary target. Pushing to Strength 8 is going to help with killing Space Marines, Scouts, anything in that kind of like range of small chaff unit with toughness 4, 3-up save. The additional 1 or 2 wounds you're likely to hand them by being Strength 8 is really going to make a difference. So I think running this guy alongside like hyper adapted Raveners, solo Tyranid Primes with Lash Whips. I've been loving these guys recently. They're really, really solid. Painted up my 3, getting through painting my 3 of them, and not being upset about that fact. Yeah, I think he really wants that synapse support to make sure that he is getting the most out of himself and doing the most damage. It also does give you the ability to like punch up into a light vehicle a little more, like the toughness 8 stuff, maybe orc buggies, dread knights, anything in that space. Obviously, not doing anything to rhinos. And then this guy is fragile. Toughness 8, 9 wounds, 3 up save is he really is going to rely on not being in the main fight. This guy's not a mainline frontline brawling unit. He is going to be, like I said, be eating around the edges, dodging overwatches, doing his best to not amazing damage. I think there's a reasonable chance that like a twin lance Overwatch could just dome this guy from full on, 1 or 2 sixes to hit. Say nothing of it like walking into a Defiler Overwatch or anything like that. It's very, very, very painful to catch a big Overwatch with this guy. So, like I said, be very careful about eating around the edges. Charge through walls if you can. Do what you can to try to keep this guy alive. He's resilient to small Overwatches because of the heal, but he is not resilient to big Overwatches. So be really, really conscious of those. All right, next up, we have some detachment synergies. Where are you going to be likely to want to play this guy? So I think I pulled out 4 detachments that I think are the ones that have the most synergy with him. And I'm not convinced that I like Final Day as an option here, but I think the other 3 seem pretty reasonable. And all of the other ones will play him because he is good at scoring and you will not be upset with it. Cinematic Nexus can give him +1 to hit to charge. You can get the 5 invulnerable save to maybe tank some damage or all that kind of stuff. Like there are real ones to hit and wound, obviously very strong there as well. But those are more you're playing the datasheet to play the datasheet, and there's some synergy on top of that. But let's talk about the 3 that I think are the most interesting. So invasion fleet, sustained hits or lethal hits really, really, really helps with just maximizing the damage out of this guy. Lethal hits helps him punch up a little bit into vehicles. Access to lethal hits, crit 5s can really help there. And then sustained hits is going to get him to hitting an average of 12 attacks into an infantry squad, which then if you're in Synapse is going to be 10 wounds, at which point you're very likely to kill a squad of Space Marines even through armor contempt because you're very likely they're going to fail 5 4-up saves before you add the bite on top of that. There's also a great stratagem suite in Invasion Fleet. You've got crit 5s, which great crit 5 sustains can help a ton. It's very much better odds of getting the two bite wounds through as well to heal up a bunch or to do two to like actually precision at a really important character with like 2 sustained hits. That's getting to the point where you're killing Space Marine captains, Technomancers out of Wraith bricks, all that kind of stuff. You can get 2 sustains, suddenly those things are really likely to die. Overrun is a really, really cool stratagem for this guy. It's actually surprisingly decent on him for a stratagem that's not actually that good under normal circumstances, but Overrun specifically, you can make a consolidation of up to 6 inches as long as you end within range of one of our enemy units. Now, there's nothing saying he can't consolidate through walls as well. So if you can make a 6-inch consolidation move through a wall, tag an objective, get your OC3 on it, put a unit in combat, or just flip in, just be in an annoying place. But also, if you kill the thing and you're no longer in combat, you can make a full normal move of 6 inches, which is very powerful on a unit that moves through walls. So this guy can be really, really that hit and run kind of thing, especially if you're wanting to leave him on the table because he's scoring a card. Maybe he needs to be engaging on fronts or air denial, or he's denying primary, and you don't want to pick him up just now, or you just want to not you don't have like the CP to rapid ingress him. You just like leave him on the table because he's in a good space already and he's threatening something, right? There are always times where you want to leave him on the table. Then you've got obviously Fight on Death, which sure it's a 4-up, but it exists, and the Feel No Pain will help a ton with getting interacted with. Just Feel No Pain is a powerful rule. Shocking, I know. Now the biggest downside of Invasion Fleet is he's got no natural synapse, and there's not a ton of things in Invasion Fleet that like really will be going in with him, right? Maybe you're playing Brood Lords and Gene Stealers, maybe you're playing a couple of Neurolictors that are brawling around him, but if he's rapid ingressing, going and harassing, he's unlikely to be in synapse range for his 5 of Feel No Pain. He's probably just gonna have a 6-up. He might not be in range for the crit 5 stratagem. It's gonna be a little awkward to support him, but I think that the upside when you do, it overweighs the downside when you can't. Next up, we have Subterranean Assault, which I think is probably the most natural home for this guy. Shockingly, the guy with the borrower keyword on his data sheet is really good in Subterranean Assault. Every time that he comes in, he can generate a tunnel. So in both players' turns, you can get a tunnel. It really helps with just keeping the economy of having a tunnel anywhere you want it really high. Raveners are natural up down as well, but between this guy and 2 Ravener squads, you can be generating 4 tunnels a battle round, which is a great number of tunnels to just have flowing through the game. It really helps keep your dynamism really high and be able to 6-inch deep strike other places. It also helps deal with the fact that sometimes it just sucks to have to rapid this guy every turn. Like I said, Tyranid's not an army that has an overwhelming flow of CP, and being able to 6-inch deep strike and just hit a charge, you're 92% chance to hit a 6-inch charge if you're willing to chuck a reroll at it. There's the reroll stratagem that emanates from a monster. This guy is a monster, so you can drop him in, have everything else coming around him, and then have a whole bunch of 6-inch rerollable charges, which is likely to work, not guaranteed, but likely. And the real one to the detachment rule massively improves the consistency on all of its attacks, right? It just gets him to that point of hitting, 12 to 13 times pretty consistently with his attacks, and you have access to sustained hit stratagem from Enfilading Emergence, I think it's called. Just a great set of abilities to have access to. You've also got another heal stratagem, which is, I guess, okay. and you're unlikely to ever need to use the borrower stratagem on him, which is great, right? You don't want to have to be bringing this guy back. You don't like it's another thing that you can just have two Ravener squads and this guy. That's three units you can have every turn threatening those 6-inch deep strikes, threatening to come in behind your opponent if they don't screen, threatening to come in front of them if they do. This guy just is going to slot super well into every subterranean assault build. I can't imagine a world where you would not play this guy personally. Vanguard Assault, he's also got the Vanguard Invader keyword, so Vanguard Assault and Final Day both benefit from that. Advance and Charge and Fallback and Charge does alleviate some of the downsides of him getting stuck in combat. Advance and Charge can let him rapid ingress in some better spots where he can drop away and then Advance and Charge through a wall, go into some places, and then Fallback and Charge means that if he does get stuck in combat, it's not the end of the world. You've also got access to the Battle Shock stratagem for +1 to hit and +1 to wound, so you can cancel out like -1 to hits or get that +1 to wound if your opponent fails the Battle Shock test, at which point you are now threatening, pretty much anything you're going to be wounding on 2s and 3s. Do be aware that the bite requires unmodified successful wound roll, so if you have +1 to wound, it will not trigger on like a 4 up into a Custodian Guard. You do need to roll a natural 5, which is a bit of a weird, whatever. But yeah, those battle shocks can be really good for stopping people from using like armor contempt, any other defensive stratagem, right? It's a good way to make sure that you're like getting your kills. If no guarantee your opponent fails those battle shock tests, but sometimes they do, and it's going to be really nice when they do. Load up 18 also gives you some really interesting options for rapid ingressing, and there is a reactive move. He can reactive move through a wall on a big monster that is not nothing. It is going to be a pain in the ass for some people sometimes to have this guy just slide 6 inches through a wall. 2 CP is a lot for that, but it is a thing you can do. And then final day, um, he moves around pretty easy, which means it's pretty easy to apply your catalyst for the +1 to hit for your Tyranid units. The Hyperfrost is the reroll wound stratagem. He does have to be within 6 for that. He's not going to be doing it naturally, but if he hits the charge, if he rapid ingresses and goes in, he's another unit that doesn't mind being in the brawling position for final day. And when he does die, you can do the emotional support +1 to hit and wound because they killed my emotional support Red Terror. How dare they? That was my service animal. You'll be able to kind of pump the damage that way. So yeah, that's thoughts on Red Terror. Where does this guy slot into lists? Pretty much anywhere. I think most NID lists are going to be happy trimming 130 points out to fit this guy in. I could see something like Ron's list from Maastricht finding the points for this by maybe cutting Old One Eye, maybe cutting one of the Ravener squads because you have so many natural tunnels coming in here already. Maybe you just put this guy in and, maybe instead of the Maleceptor, right? There's lots of places you could do this. Invasion fleet lists, you're probably going to see this guy alongside either a shooting castle or a bunch of infantry because he's just like in the shooting castle style list, with lots of Tyrant effects and Maleceptor X screens, he adds a ton of dynamism for the scoring and a rapid ingress threat that can make your opponent put units out in front of you so you can start shooting them, but also being able to go and harass them on their objectives and apply a bit more pressure besides just like dropping in gargoyles and going and denying it. It's an active harassment piece that can go and kill those small units that Tyranids can sometimes struggle with because they don't have lots of side guns, right? Now, like a Rep X has 37 shots plus the two big ones. The next screen's just got D6 plus 3 shots from one gun. It can't really split fire. This guy gives you a tool to go and kill the scout squad that otherwise would require maybe one, maybe two X screen activations. This is a tool to solve that. So I think he really helps that style of invasion fleet build. And I think the swarm build will still play him because he's just an efficient piece. But he is certainly less interesting there because that list typically doesn't struggle with scoring. Does he make it to a Vanguard Onslaught Rush list? I'm unsure if he is a good enough piece in the sense that if you're just trying to play like 30 Gene Stealers, 20 Raveners, and just playing the Go, does he add enough to that to be worth including? Maybe not, because he doesn't kind of meet that critical mass of I'm just putting bodies in front of you to solve. Maybe he doesn't quite make the cut there, but I think in general, if you are looking for any form of additional help with scoring and some additional like solve problems or cause problems tools, I think he does a really good job of fitting into all those spots. So yeah, certainly for tier 2 players, I think this guy is a great include. I think he'll probably start by being in every list and we'll find places that he's really, really useful and find places really, really not useful. He's certainly not Twin Lance. He's certainly not a Defiler. But yeah, really, really interesting, really, really viable option, I think, for any tier army. And I think every single one will be happy to include him. All right, guys, thank you so much for being with us. That's all I have for you today. I hope everyone enjoyed. If you did, please remember to do all the usual, like, comment, and subscribe. If you would like to hear more from us, you can check out the StatCheck live show every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. UK time. We'll be live at youtube.com/StatCheck. If you'd like to work with me specifically, especially if you're looking to work on Tyranids right now, come on, drop me a message. You can check out stat-check.com/coaching, or you can drop us an email at coaching@stat-check.com. I'd be more than happy to work with you on anything 40K related. Yeah, that's all I got. Thanks very much, and we shall catch you next time.